everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's Marissa, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I'm going to talk about my next book again. I am super excited about this book. I mean, I get stoked about all of my books, but this one has a special place in my heart because of how writing it went. As weird as that is to say. Again, was not the project I meant to have done by 2025. I really wanted Through the Shattered Mirror to be my next standalone book, but that one is looking like it's gonna be the 2026 standalone now. It is most of the way done. It's just not done for this year. It just isn't. A couple years ago, I was putting together a list of the big bads of the iridescent universe and plotting out who the heroes would be facing throughout their different worlds and journeys and crossovers. We'll get to crossovers some other time. I've always had a pretty good handle on the good guys. I knew where the heroes were going to be. They're a little bit simpler for me. Baddies are a little more complex. I don't like the straight up mustache twirling villains. Every once in a while, you do have to have that character who is just evil because they love being evil. The unapologetically, yep, I like to be a bad guy person is fun, but it gets stale after a good chunk of time. So I like to have baddies that are a little more sympathetic than, haha, I love evil. Heroes who make bad choices are easy to win people over with, but baddies in the same vein are just naturally more difficult to win people over with. So I set out a couple years back to create a bad guy. I love the psychology behind true crime. I think it's super fascinating, if dark. But I decided, because of this love of psychology and true crime, that I was going to create a serial killer as one of the main baddies in the iridescent universe. Years ago, I had it somewhat fleshed out. I wrote it down. He had a completely different name back then and everything. And I wrote a final chapter for his story. That chapter had Emiya preparing to fight this baddie after he basically ripped her entire world apart and killed her son. This is not spoilers at all, by the way. None of this ever happened. At all. I do this sort of thing quite often when I write. I'll create characters in my head and then put down a chapter that will help me figure out who they are and sort of dip my toes into the world they live in. And then I figure when I come back to that project, I can look at it and build something around that idea that I left there for myself. And usually I come back and roll with what's already on the page, and everything's fine. This time that didn't happen. I kept Emiya's name, I kept her ability to sense souls, and then something happened that I, to this very moment, don't understand. I knew from that initial little chapter that she was law enforcement, but suddenly she was ex-law enforcement, and she was dragged back in by this serial killer case, and the whole story started with pounding on the door, and I went with it. Again, the book is now a time loop detective story slash thriller slash fantasy slash dark romance with a heaping spoonful of all the true crime and psychology I've ingested over my life, and a bunch of dark jokes, grim humor, and murder puns. Yeah, it's a mixing bowl. Here is a general summary. Emiya Breda is a remnant spiritualist. This ability not only allows her to sense souls, but she can sense impressions of the souls left behind in objects. She uses this ability as basically, on her world, a private detective. She can find missing people, killers, lost items, all because she can sense not only them, but what they leave behind on their crime scenes. Emiya is not the sort of person you can lie to. Let me just say that. She'll even know when you're lying to yourself. That's how aware she is of people's souls. The Grim Artist is a prolific serial killer. He keeps dropping bodies in artful ways. Everyone he kills is made beautiful in death. And I don't mean that the deaths are nice. I mean that it's pretty enough that people can look at it like art, like a statue or a painting. It's easy on the eyes and easy to sort of disconnect, if that makes sense. Every scene he leaves behind has a macabre beauty to it, but no evidence. It's obvious to peacekeepers that he's cleaning his scenes up with magic, but they can't figure out who he is. This leads the head peacekeeper on the case, PK Soma, to reluctantly hire Emiya because the only spiritualist on the force that they have at the time is a rookie named Officer Yuli, and he doesn't have the ability to sense remnants. So Emiya joins the team and starts using her abilities to narrow down a profile for the Grim Artist, all while helping the rookie get a little bit better with his own skills. She, through her work, gets closer and closer and closer to finding the Grim Artist until he kills her. Then she wakes up. She wakes back up in her bed right before she's called on to the first scene for the Grim Artist case. This starts a time loop wherein the chaos of the story really begins and everything just goes bonkers from here. Everyone has their own goals. They all have their specific ways they want this story to end, and no one's having a good time. As it all loops over and over again, no one's doing great. Everyone's suffering. Sort of. Sort of? Not everyone's suffering. At least not in every timeline. Some people have better timelines than others. This book was a blast to write. Nothing turned out the way I expected it. One day I will talk about the thing that happened in this book, because it wasn't planned at all, but nothing went the way I wanted it. No one acted or reacted the way I planned. I don't plot anything out with basically any of my books, but I almost always know where everybody's going because I know my characters very well. So I know that when I put a choice in front of them, I basically know which choice they're gonna make. Not this time. Not this time. I was shocked and surprised by everything almost as much as my readers were. And that's been great. That's been so much fun. I took it to my writing group, and they both loved the imagery and were grossed out by it, which was awesome. I love that I got that visceral reaction from them. It was amazing. What was even better, though, were my beta readers. They made the same journey as one of the characters did in this story. They followed that arc almost completely. It was beautiful to watch because their ideas and mindsets slowly morphed every time loop, and listening to them react and talk about it as it went on was just chef kiss. So good. I tend to reread my stories a lot before I publish them. I'll tweak even the tiniest little things. I don't often use super complex language or anything unless it's a character who tends to use very wordy or complex language, but I'm also that one person who will dig in etymology for hours and hours to find the exact word that I want, and it'll be something stupid that nobody's gonna notice. It'll be one word in the middle of a random page that means nothing to anyone else, but I will comb through to make sure that one word is perfect. Usually for secrets, there's lots of secrets hidden in through just random word choice that looks random, but it really isn't. But all that to say, I read my books a lot, and getting them ready and rereading over and over and over again, I get fatigued. It's not to say I dislike any of the work I've done. I love my books. I love all of them. Even the really crappy ones I wrote forever ago that should never, ever, 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 ever see the light of day. But I do get tired eventually of reading the same sentence again, of reading the same sentence again, of reading the same sentence again. Do that about 100 times, readers, and you'll understand. Writers probably already understand this feeling. It gets to a point where you're done with a book and you just want to let it go because you don't think you could read it again. This did not happen with Again. I wish I could count it on my Goodreads reading challenge because I've read Again probably 15 times just to read it. Not even for the correction portion of it. No. I handed it off to my editor and then I've just picked it back up just to read it over and over. I don't know why. I don't know why it's this one specifically. It just is that way for me. Does it mean it's the perfect book for everyone? No, no book is written for everyone. But this one hit a good spot for me. And not just me, I have a beta reader that I see fairly regularly, and she keeps asking for when it's going to come out. She's super excited. And I'm going to tell you guys what I tell her all the time. I don't know just yet when it'll be out, but I'll let you know as soon as I know. It is a chunky book, and it needs a little bit more time with the editor because holidays kicked our butt collectively. Me and my editor got kicked in the butt by the holidays. This book, though, wrote itself. Darn near wrote itself, I should say. Even though none of the characters behaved, no one followed the plot that I set in front of them. Everybody veered as soon as I put the track in front of them. They're like, nope, we're going to take this exit over here. And I'm like, I gave you option A and B. There was no option X. Why are you on option X? Okay, we're going over there. It was a wild ride, but it wrote really easily and flowed really easily. And aside from a few really dark, trauma-laced moments that were really hard on me to write mentally, because, trauma, the story felt really simple and really good. It was the easiest thing for me in a pretty difficult time, and despite the darkness in this story, it was an absolute joy. There are so many puns. I still find myself in Emiya's mind space sometimes making puns all the time because she does a really dark and gruesome job, so she copes by telling puns about death and murder. And I already liked puns, but she has this unhealthy obsession with them, and which has infected me and a couple of beta readers who now send me random murder puns out of the blue. It's been lovely and dark at the same time. It's a lovely mix. I'm gonna stop rambling because I could ramble about this book all day and all night because it was just so much fun. and there's a lot of super cool twists and turns. There's a lot of fun with the dark. The subject matter is very serious, but done with a light twist that is just fun for me, personally. I always have to have some sort of lightness to all the dark that's going on. Probably because I have a coping mechanism or something. Anyway, this book is very dark. If you like true crime or serial killer stories or, detective stories or trying to figure out your way out of a time loop when nobody is behaving the way you need them to, all with a dash of humor, this is probably a good book for you. There are healthy friendships and romances, but there are also lots of unhealthy friendships and romances. And yeah, it's basically very balanced, It's just good stuff, bad stuff, it works. I will keep you all informed on progress for this one. Arcs should be pretty close to out by the time this video goes live, but we'll see. I can't wait to share this one with you guys, and I'm probably going to give it another 2 or 3 read-throughs before it comes out, just because that's how I feel about this one. Anyway, done rambling. I hope you all have a wonderful, lovely day. Be kind to one another. Take care.